Well, I was pleasantly surprised. This was remarkably a lot better than expected. Now, the 1990s classic is its own thing. It's very well done film, but there were certain things even in that classic I found like, I don't know, that seemed a little suspicious or problematic. Well, I am happy to report whatever this is, a remake, reimagining, it's very successful. I would say you can really enjoy both films in isolation because there are obviously little links and pieces together, but no, there really are their own stories, and the story is pretty rock solid. So, what is happening in Twisters? Well, we have Kate, who is a very traumatized female protagonist, a lot like the original film, but it starts to veer off in a very different direction. There are commonalities where we're dealing with the science of the twister and tornadoes and how to cope with them, but then the story just went with its own very interesting structure. It does take notes from the original film, but so it seems the conflict is initially between Kate, who is a very kind of closed in, introverted scientist, and this much more heroic cowboy figure played by Glenn Powell, and his name is Tyler. But then it gets really much more complicated and has some fairly interesting twists, which I didn't really expect. I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." Feels like it's gonna go one way, and they're gonna make some fairly cliched steps in the plot, but it's like, no, it actually developed fairly organically. Nothing is as forced as I expected, and yes, the two actors are very beautiful. They're very charismatic, so that worked quite well. Probably the one major dilemma with this is, ironically, and there are a lot of tornadoes. Don't get it twisted. The digital effects are fairly well done. There's only a few places I thought it was like a little bit too much. So the effects are really strong, and that of course is one of the bad parts about the original film is that they were groundbreaking for their time period, but now they look a little cartoonish. This does not look cartoonish. It looks very beautiful, looks very well done. The cinematographer worked on Rise of Skywalker and The Force Awakens. You can definitely see a lot of love and care into the imagery. I mean, I was just stunned how beautiful this film is. That said, although the tornadoes are critical to the plot and the story, they are more like a footnote. They're in the background, whereas in the original film, they're more like this active agent. Here, it's a natural phenomenon. They're very dangerous. How to deal with them. It is mainly about the main characters and them struggling with their own inner turmoil. And again, goes into some very surprising places. I don't want to ruin it, but and it's very jam packed. We even have Superman in this. Yeah, yeah, David, the new Superman, he's here. And the kid who was in Transformers: Rise of the Beasts, which I saw, I thought he was pretty good in that, although it's a little bit rough here and there. He's in this as well. So the cast, their acting is very strong for the most part. But still, yeah, there are a few clunky moments here and there where they have to do some tonal shifts, which worked for me for the most part. I will say this, if you're not an American, this may not hit you as hard because this is very much an American film. The references, the atmosphere, the music, dialogue, it's very American centric. So if you're not American or don't like American culture, you may not understand why this will have a lot of power. But I've grown up in America for decades, even though I wasn't born here. So it definitely landed for me in a much more strong place than I expected. Again, at the end of the day, it is a silly action film, but it does have a lot more depth than I expected. So I'm going to give Twisters an 8 out of 10. Very delightful, unexpected surprise. So I'm not really shocked it's becoming a big hit. Is it enough for you to support in theaters? Again, in terms of quality, yes. Definitely for a DVD, absolutely. However, I will note there are some political issues here and there that you may find dubious, but I will try to deal with those in more spoiler reviews. Thanks for listening.